Strengthening tight hamstrings is not the thing that you need to do if you want those tight hamstrings to permanently loosen. This is because the root underlying cause of tight hamstrings isn't hamstring related at all, it's back related. G'day, my name's Grant Frost and I'm an Australian musculoskeletal physiotherapist who is passionate about trying to better understand the root underlying causes of common aches, pains, injuries and dysfunction. And in today's video, I want to talk to you about what I've come to understand over the last 20 years in regards to what you need to do if you have tight hamstrings and if you want that tightness to permanently go away. And no, the answer isn't just strengthening those tight hamstrings. So let's get into it. So as someone who cares about the root cause of things, it's become really clear to me as someone on social media that not everyone has the necessary perspective to give themselves the best chance of permanently reducing hamstring tightness. The large majority of people, through no fault of their own, are still of the view that the best way to loosen tight hamstrings is to stretch tight hamstrings. And while that is still a very necessary piece of the puzzle, just stretching tight hamstrings on their own doesn't necessarily address the underlying reason why those hamstrings have become tight in the first place. And the other school of thought that I come across is a lot of people very earnestly suggest that you don't necessarily need to stretch tight hamstrings, you just need to strengthen them instead. Hamstring muscle strength exercises are still an important piece of the puzzle. What a lot of our current thinking lacks is just that perspective to understand why those hamstrings have become tight in the first place. And for me clinically, and for a lot of people watching at home, if you've seen these types of videos before, the number one hidden cause of why a hamstring becomes tight in the first place isn't because they've always been tight, or that you naturally have tight hamstrings, or that your hamstrings happen to be weak for whatever reason. The majority of hamstring muscle tightness is just your body's way of compensating for lower back dysfunction. Stiff joints, tight muscles, overloaded tissue, poor postures, poor trunk muscle strength and function. So it goes without saying that if our sole focus is just telling you that you need better hamstring stretches, you need to do it more often, you need to do a better job, or that you need to strengthen those hamstrings and they will eventually become looser, then you may never get there if we don't also have a look at why your back isn't functioning normally and why those hamstrings are tight as a result. So what I'd like to take you through are 3 really simple mobility exercises, one for your hamstring, one for the nerve that goes down the back of your leg, and one for your lower back, to hopefully show you in real time how much each may be contributing to your hamstring muscle tightness. And if you are a member of the channel, there'll be an extended version of this video where I want to go through 2 really simple hamstring muscle strength exercises just to really round everything off. So the first and most important thing to get to is we want to go through a lower back mobility exercise to see what impact that is having, if any, on your hamstring muscle tightness. And before we get to the lower back mobility exercise, the thing we need to do first is we need to first establish a baseline of how your hamstring muscle tightness feels so that when we do each exercise, we can have something to come back to see if anything has actually changed. And 2 really simple things that you can do. The first is just a basic hamstring muscle stretch, where you're up nice and tall, slight bend in your knee, hinge forward from your hips while keeping your back straight, looking for tightness in the muscle belly of the hamstring at the back of the thigh. Take note of where you feel it, how bad it feels, but also how far you feel you can go forwards. Then the other thing you can do is we can do a global test, which with your legs straight, we can just get you to bend forward as far as you feel comfortable. Again, taking note of where you feel your tightness, how far you feel you can go, so that once we've done each one of these exercises, you can immediately come back to both of these tests to see if anything has genuinely changed. So the first exercise we want to go through is one that tries to free up the joints of your lower back. And to do this, we can use a foam roller, we can use a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball, whatever you feel most comfortable using. Visually, it's a bit better with the foam roller, but what I would like you to do is essentially we're looking for dysfunction from kind of the middle part of your back all the way down, kind of the base of your rib cage down. So if you can place the foam roller somewhere there arbitrarily, then we can get you to gently either keeping your hips down and reclining back over the roller, or depending on your flexibility, we can lift your hips up and gently pop your head and shoulders onto the ground and then gently lower down your hips to tension it up from underneath in this way. But the secret to this is I don't want you to be rolling up and down on the roller. We want you to choose a spot, Gently roll from one side to the next, looking for which side you feel is the stiffest, the tightest, and the most restricted. Again, you may have no overt back pain to speak of. We're not talking about back pain, we're talking about restrictions in your lower back that are asking your hamstrings to become tight through compensation. And the idea is once you find a spot that feels a little bit stiff, tight, and restricted, and you've found a level that you feel comfortable with, you've found the side, I just want you to stay here for 15, 30, 60 seconds. Give it a chance for the soft tissue and the joints to give a little bit. Then once you've had enough of that, you can move the roller up a little bit more. Again, choose the version of this that feels the most comfortable for you. Off to the side that you feel needs it the most. Hang out here, again, 30 seconds, 60 seconds, and so on and so forth. And then once you've done that, what we immediately want you to do is once you've worked all the way up and down your back to whatever level you feel comfortable, we want to come back to the exact same test that we did before to see if anything physically feels different. So if I do the same thing again, leg up, slight bend in the knee, keep my back straight, hinge forward through my hips, you should hopefully see that I'm going that little bit further through my hamstring than what I was before. Same thing as we come back to the global test. If I keep my knees straight and bend down as far as I feel comfortable, I now feel like I've got more mobility to get down here than I did before. I don't feel the same restrictions through here. Yes, my back's going to be a little bit looser, so I'm going to get a little bit more bend out of that, but I don't feel like I've got as much tension through my hamstrings as I did before. So test this out for yourself. Spend 10, 15 minutes systematically working up and down your spine before we do any hamstring muscle stretching to then see what impact it has on your hamstring muscle tightness. Because if it has a decent impact, then again, hamstring muscle tightness becomes less of a hamstring muscle tightness problem and more of a lower back dysfunction problem. And having said that, there can be another sneaky part to this conversation as well that involves the sciatic nerve. So one of the sneaky things about hamstring muscle tightness that a lot of people may not realize is that if you are stretching your tight hamstrings and you feel the tightness at the back of your knee, then there's a very good chance that that isn't actually hamstring tightness, but sciatic nerve neural tension. And this is also important because if the reason why you feel your hamstrings are tight is because you feel the tightness at the back of your knee, then again, you might be missing the bigger picture of what's actually feeling restricted. And while freeing up your lower back, which is the origin of where that nerve comes from, will help feed some slack into the back of your knee and improve how that feels regardless. We can also go through a sciatic nerve neural tension exercise to hopefully mobilize that and shear that tightness free to see if that is a layer that you need to also focus on to feel looser through the back of your thigh. And while there are a ton of different neural gliding exercises, one that I've become particularly fond of recently is called an elephant walk. And all that requires you to do is keeping your back straight, hinging forwards from your hips. You are welcome to lightly rest your hands on something if you want to. It is a little bit more beneficial to not hold on to anything because there's more tension through the backs of your legs when you do that. But when you're beginning, have some light touch on something. And all we want you to do is we want you to fully extend one leg while bending the other leg and then just shift backwards and forwards from that and almost feel like you're gently shifting your hips from side to side as you do that. And what you'll find is as you do 10 or 15 of these in a nice controlled way, you should then be able to lean further and further forwards as the tension through the back of your legs becomes less and less and less. Make sure you're being very controlled when you do this. We don't want you to sort of be out of control, throwing your leg into extension because we want to really gently shear that sort of neural tension free through all of the musculoskeletal tissue that it passes through. And once you've done a set of 10 or 15 of those, same deal again, immediately come back to the same two tests, slight bend in the knee, up nice and tall, see how far you feel you can go again. Again, I feel like I'm going further, but I feel like the sensation is now different. The majority of the restriction now feels right in the muscle belly, which is where you should feel a tight hamstring. There's not a lot going on in the back of my knee here. The other interesting thing is, when we come back to this global test, again, knee straight, bending forward as far as you feel comfortable. This time, I feel like I'm going a lot further and there's nowhere near as much global tension down the back of my leg, which again would be the sciatic nerve to begin with. I am feeling like there's more mobility through the whole system. I'm not feeling as much through there as I was before. And once again, if you can compare how that felt to how you felt originally, we're going to start to understand what role, if any, sciatic nerve neural tension is having on your sense of hamstring muscle tightness. And with all things being said and done, once you have freed your back up a little bit, you've freed up the neural tissue a little bit more as well, we still still want to go through hamstring muscle stretches to make sure that we're also treating the symptom of what has developed, albeit one that is a consequence of something else. And for me, clinically, we don't have to overcomplicate anything. There are a number of different ways that you can stretch a tight hamstring. One of the best ones clearly is to do it in standing, because that is a little bit more convenient than getting down onto the ground. And while it doesn't matter which version of this stretch that you do, how you do it does need to be the same to get the most out of that stretch. And the way to do this for me is I would always suggest that if you're trying to stretch tight hamstrings, have a little bit of a bend in your knee so we're not unnecessarily tensioning up that nerve that goes down the back of your leg. A small bend in the knee will help you isolate the back of your thigh a little bit better. I would always encourage someone to be up tall, and when you bend forwards, we want you to bend forwards from your hips so you're pulling on that tight hamstring. And if I'm trying to get to my foot, if I bend my back, I can get all the way down here, but it hasn't necessarily added anything extra into the stretch. Up nice and tall, hinge forward as far as you feel comfortable. I'm going to hold on to my foot just to make it easier. These days, if you want immediate changes in how tight your hamstring muscle feels, or any muscle for that matter, what we need to do is we need to find ways to engage and activate that tightness. So for me, that might mean bending my knee a little bit and trying to push my heel into the ground. Others, you might just be able to actively tense that spot that feels tight. We need to hold this for about 10 seconds because it creates a reflex in your brain, that maximal tension, that when you stop tensing it and keep the same position, the tissue will physically give. It's a reflex that occurs where that tissue will now become that little bit looser than it was before. And then what you can do while maintaining the same tension is once you've tensed it and relaxed it, you should then feel you can go a fraction further into the stretch than you could before repeating that process for as long as you feel you can until you either get sick of it or you stop making change. And then again, as always, just doing the same test that we did before, coming up into the same position. This should obviously make a bit of a difference. Up nice and tall, slight bend, hinge forward from the hips. And now I can feel there's a little bit of tightness more so on the inside of my thigh now as opposed to right in the back of it. And when I come back to the global test, legs straight, hinging forwards. Again, I feel like I can get down a heap further than I could before. So again, hopefully the visual that I'll put up to compare highlights that each one that I've done has improved my hamstring flexibility straight away. Some may do it more than others, but the point is, if we just did the hamstring muscle stretches on their own and we didn't look a little bit more broadly at why those hamstrings have become tight in the first place, then we could be missing a very basic piece of the puzzle that we need to focus on to permanently fix this long term. And as I mentioned earlier, strength is still an important piece of that puzzle because you can never be strong enough through your hamstrings, and doing hamstring muscle strength exercises through the full range that you have available to you will also help free them up and loosen them anyway. So if you remember, we'll get to two really simple ways to do that as well. And you've tried a bunch of things that include hamstring stretching and hamstring strengthening exercises, and you still feel like your hamstrings are tight, then I urge you to take a look at your lower back function. And by extension, if you do feel like freeing up your back and strengthening your back over time changes how tight your hamstrings feel, then the next conversation we need to have may revolve around how you use your back or hold your back when you do the things that you do most throughout the day, which for most people is often sitting and slouching, or for others it might be standing, bending over. But ultimately, we can't solve any hamstring dysfunction, let alone hamstring muscle tightness, we don't take that step back and understand that your lower back has the most important role to play because it's the most central part of your body that influences how your hamstrings feel and function. So please let me know in the comments down below how you felt with each one of those exercises and which one you maybe felt had the biggest impact on your hamstring muscle tightness. If you want more content like this from me, please like and subscribe the video, share it with someone who you think may benefit from this. Please consider becoming a member if you want to watch the extended cut of this video with a couple of strength-based ideas thrown into the mix. But as always, thank you again for watching and hope to see you next time.